Hi guys, I'm back for another episode of Let's Talk About It with Katie Moore. Katie, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
So many times on social media, you see someone and you feel like you know them and you see their whole life, and then you actually meet them in person and you learn so much more about them and what they're interested in and what's really going on in their life. And I felt that way about you. I know you have over 50,000 Instagram followers. That's insane. I can
Oh.
imagine that took you a while to kind of build up. So, can you talk about how you got started?
I first started posting my freshman year of college on TikTok and just kind of making those dumb videos. People liked, seeing athletes on there, and I would make videos with my teammates and that kind of thing. And it was just kind of like a good way to calm the nerves, like on meet day when we were waiting all day to run and we're sitting around the hotel room. So I really started to enjoy posting and putting myself out there. So that's kind of how it all began.
That's so cool. I remember when TikTok was getting started and like being a freshman and I wanted to post on social media. Like I would always like, oh, like what if I did this or that? And I never had the courage, honestly, to just do it because I was so scared of like people seeing.
Yeah, athletes now have such a huge advantage to like spread their message, spread their brand, and yeah, so I feel like I've slowly started getting more into like having a message and having like a personality online, and I don't know, it's kind of been like a journey to get there.
That's been something I've been thinking about actually is like there's lots of different types of creators and like there's the people who post like super just like interesting content like oh they're telling stories or they're like doing cool stuff and like going and traveling like vlogs and all that kind of stuff, and then there's people who are sharing like information like there's Bill Nye's and different things like that,
Yeah.
and then there's the people who have really aesthetic lifestyles or right and like Instagram baddies and all these different things where it's like all of that content does well and there's so many different parts, but there's kind of like pluses and minuses to all of them. For me, with the podcast and like posting like as an advocate, a lot of people don't necessarily know a lot about my personal life all the time. And so sometimes like I've been trying to show my real personality and get people like to know who I am. But at the same time, there's like this pressure to always be right. like
Yeah.
like if I'm posting something or I'm endorsing a group or telling people that they should follow something, like I have to be right about that. Like I can't share wrong information. That can be stressful for you throughout your like posting experience. What's been some of those stressors for you about showing up online?
A lot of times the athlete lifestyle, it is very like a glamorous thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in high school, I looked up to college athletes. Like that was my dream. Like just get to the D1 level, like run in college. Like that would be just amazing. You look at people and you're like, oh, well, that looks like so easy peasy and like glamorous and awesome. But then you don't see like there are mental struggles. You do get like anxiety maybe. You do struggle with, your performance and the disappointment of sport. And so I feel like being authentic online and just being kind of like showing the real side of it can be helpful for other people that are struggling. But then also it's kind of hard, like, yeah, that is being very vulnerable and putting yourself out there. So it's like, what are people going to think? Are they going to think you're like a weak athlete, that you're not mentally tough? People are always going to have something to say. You can't always please everybody. And, people are either going to critique you, how you look, how you play, how, like just really anything. They can put you under a microscope when you really put yourself out there on social media. So it is scary.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, as much as people say athletes have so much to gain by NIL and you should be creating a personal brand, like there's a sacrifice there for putting yourself out there. Have you gotten like weird comments and stuff like that? Like we don't have to talk about exactly what they said, but how do you handle like weird comments or people feeling like they deserve parts of you?
It is hard because I had to like remind myself, track, social media, that's not who I am. It's what I do.
Yeah.
Like, that's not your identity as a person. For example, sports, like you play your sport for yourself. Like you
Yeah.
have to have that intrinsic motivation. Like something is pushing you to keep showing up every day. And, same thing with social media. If you're just doing it to please other people or to look good to the world, then that's kind of an issue.
I think women athletes get this the most. People assume like when we post and we start getting following or whatever, it's just like looking good. Like that's all it's about, right? Like
Yeah.
oh like you're posting in your uniform, especially like volleyball, like we wear this tiny spandex, or like with track, like sometimes you guys wear the bum huggers. All she ever does is post photos in her volleyball uniform. It's like, well, that's my uniform, and I'm an athlete, so it's gonna go.
Right. Exactly. I know. And like that is such a hard thing. Like if I go through my comments and I see, oh, like her muscles are too big, or, XYZ, she's too skinny, she needs to eat something, like those kinds of things. One person will be like, oh, she's needs to lose weight. And the other person's like, she's too skinny. So it's like, you really cannot buy into any of that.
I do think that a lot of athletes need to remember when they are posting that they are being a role model, though. Sometimes, I do think people go out of their way to show life that's fake, or like maybe they're editing their bodies or themselves a lot, or they're, creating and curating this life that's not real. I've definitely felt pressure to do that, especially like my freshman and sophomore year, when you're like, you don't really know yourself yet, and you feel like, oh, I have to do something to get seen or to grow. Have you ever felt that pressure from people to show up a certain way?
Totally. Yeah, that definitely resonates with me. It was fresh off COVID. I lost my senior track season in high school. So I was already like kind of freaking out because I had put a lot of my identity into being a track runner. So when I got to Iowa, I was kind of like, I have to reinvent myself. I have to appear this way. Like, I have to have it all together. And then kind of like when I started posting on social media, I'm like, oh, I just kind of like did the surface level things, and oh, look at here's me before my race. And then like I didn't show, oh my gosh, like I was actually so nervous for that race, and like the real raw bits of it. So that is the problem with social media. Like you do automatically have like a persona that you put out.
No one really wakes up one day with thousands of followers. Like there's work put into it. And I think it's super important that when people are signing up for this work, is that they understand the consequences, like positive and negative too. Because no matter how you look at it, it could be good or bad. Athletes are going to be continue to be pushed to post and to do NIL. Like it's just part of the sports thing now. Like it was like that for pro athletes. Like now it's happening to us. So I think it's really important to have this conversation. I want to talk a little bit about your job, because you're a pediatric cardiac ultrasound. That's what you do for your job.
Yeah, yes.
Insane. Like so cool. If you went on your Instagram, like you would have no idea. Like meeting you, I had no idea that you did that, or that you even like studied that in college. Can you talk a little bit about your job and why you've decided not to share that part on social media?
Yeah, it is hard. When we were talking about how, what parts do you share, what parts do you keep for yourself on social media, and a lot of like my brand on social media is centered around, oh, fitness and being a runner and being a former college athlete. That is what I enjoy posting about. And then there is also like that pressure. Oh, how would people take it? Like people are used to following for my running, and then what if I switch gears and start talking about that? Oh, what did that just do?
I don't know. For the audio people right now, Katie was talking, and the platform put up like emojis. That all goes into social media being like a highlight reel and being curated. You're not going to be able to share every single thing. And I like what you said too about like recognizing your audience. Some people are following Katie because they're like, oh, like I just love Katie and I just want to support her, right? And that's where people talk about like the brand and social media, and that's what all your NIL consultant people are telling you, like, oh, there's people who just want to know about you and want to support you, right? Or your school. And so they're going to follow you no matter what. But then there are the people who are like, hey, I just want run tips, and I just want kind of like, I like the way Katie edits her videos and it's aesthetic. And you're like, hey, I built this business, I built this brand for myself. Like, I don't want to sacrifice that by posting this new random content, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
like, I can imagine it's hard because that's something you really care about and you put your effort into. Getting a hate comment like that would hurt, right? Like,
Yeah,
is that worth
totally.
it too, like protecting yourself maybe, or
It is totally okay to keep some parts of your life just more close to your chest, and, there's parts of you that you want to share, but doesn't mean you have to be fake or anything. Just, yeah, it is a difficult thing to navigate though and figure out.
Do you have any advice for young women athletes who are navigating social media right now in college sports?
Post what you want. People are always going to have something to say. So really don't do it for anyone else but you. But that's really what I would say.
Thank you for coming on the show today, Katie. I really, really appreciate your vulnerability and talking about this.
Oh, thanks, Sydney. It was so great to be on and talk with you again.
Hey guys, it's Sydney. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk About It. If you did, make sure to leave a review and send it to a friend. Let's keep this conversation going. I'll see you guys next week.